Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course. This is how to make the law of attraction a fun game. We are here with Egan Sanders. Hi, Egan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. How are you today?
I'm good. This is one of the most popular topics because we know a little bit about the law of attraction, but you're here to tell us that we can really make a game out of it. So in this introduction, share with us your take on the law of attraction.
Well, each human being is a creator, and there's different ways to do it. Some people do shamanic practices. Some people use prayer. Some people use thought forms, affirmations, that sort of thing. Many different ways to create your reality and to attract things. But essentially, whatever we are in consciousness is what we attract. So however you get that message out there, that's when it's going to come back to you.
If someone is feeling, for example, one of the most popular, most repeated questions here is, I have a hard time attracting money or keeping money. If I get it, it always goes out. So what's going on there? Do you have an idea?
Well, with the example that you're given, money, that can mean a lot of different things to different people. When people try to increase their abundance, usually what happens is there's all sort of a subset of different belief systems that are going on there. So yes, a person can have a gigantic windfall and it comes in, and then it goes right out because they might have a thought form that or belief that I never have enough money. So even if a bunch of money comes, they subconsciously or consciously get rid of the money. And that happens with people who sometimes win the lottery, where they're like destitute, and then they win the lottery and like, oh, this is great. And then like a couple of years later, they have no money because they just gave it all away because they didn't have a prosperity consciousness. So when somebody really wants to shift something, they have to basically shift their consciousness, which is a composite of their habits, their beliefs, their attitudes, that sort of thing. And specifically in how to do that, you can work with your beliefs. You can trace it back from your actions. You can sort of look at what you've created in the past and see what your patterns are. When I work with clients, I'll usually go through and sort of delve deeper into their consciousness and say, okay, you have this. What do you want? What would you need to change? So it's really a process of inner growth and transformation. It allows you to transform your outer reality because your outer reality is a reflection of your consciousness. So you have to transform yourself to change the outer world.
That could be hard for people. We call it BS, belief systems.
Oh, okay. BS, that's right. Sometimes our BS is BS, but yes.
Yes. And so, okay, tell us about how we create an energizing experience. Like, should we do goals? Should we focus on goals? Should we set goals? Is that a positive thing or is that a detriment?
Well, it's funny. It can work both ways. Sometimes a goal can just be a call to action a second. Like one time, I was years ago when I used to work for another company, instead of myself, which is a good transition. Somebody insulted me. So I got so insulted, I said, I can't believe this. So that night I went out, looked up some other jobs, and within a week I had another job where I had a 20% pay increase. So I wasn't affirming it. It wasn't something I had a goal for, but the universe just said, move on, and it worked out. Other times you set goals and you say, okay, let me set a goal or an intention, an aim. And so what I came to conclusion is when I developed my board game Attracted is I came up with something called a goal and feeling statement. So a goal and feeling statement is basically you set what your goal is and then how you would feel if you had it. You know, I would like to have my optimal body weight. I feel strong. I feel attractive, blah, 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 blah. If it was for money, it'd be like, well, in the example you gave about a belief, I always have a surplus of money. I always have a surplus of money. I feel relaxed. I feel at ease. I feel in control. You see, so that thought form, once you begin to set it up, begins to sort of create an environment around you, which begins to magnetize things to you. And so then you manifest or shift into a sort of a different frequency or different reality.
So it really is a vibration. It really is fueling the field with our vibration. And it, like, as you were mentioning, if there's a belief system that works against it, you really have to get down to the belief system and get it out of there. Is that easy for people to identify those belief systems that are keeping them?
So sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. It really depends on, where they're at. Sometimes we've worked on something for a while. This has been my experience with myself and my clients is, let's add an issue with money. And so the first time I attempt to change it, I might get a little bit of movement, but not much. Okay, come back on another cycle, get a little bit of more movement. I'm like, okay, I learned something. This has shifted. This is a little better. Okay. I got out of debt, or I have a better job, or I'm working for myself, and you sort of build up. And what you find is you kind of go through these cycles, which are like seasons, is that eventually after a while, it's like sort of playing a game, and you say, oh, now I see. I remember when on the first level I was doing it, I was thinking that way. Now I've shifted my beliefs and shifted my emotions, and the reality has changed around me. So now it's just much easier, to create what I want. I had that with money where, years ago it was a real big struggle, or it was like kind of uneven. And now like I live pretty well. But that was because I kept on up-leveling my beliefs. And I had to sometimes just go very deeply and say, what is it showing me? So, for anybody who listens to this, simply look at your reality and say, what is showing up in my reality? What is this making me look at? What is this a symbol of? Like, for example, if some people disrespect you, and so you're like trying to develop a new image of yourself and you get disrespect, you have to say, wait a minute, why are people disrespecting me? Am I doing something? Do I believe this? So in my belief system, I believe I create my reality 100%. Anything anybody does, to what I would call to me, it's not people do things to me, it happens from me. So I look at the feedback from my reality and I say, okay, what is this symbolizing? What does this mean to me? Could this be something I believe about myself? And that's a diagnostic tool. That's one of many that I use with myself and with other people, my clients, to say, okay, let's really, hunker down and get into the guts of this. What are we really creating here? But the information's always there. You just have to be really willing to look at it. But the beliefs are always there on the surface if you're willing to look at it. And sometimes it's not pleasant. We don't want to look at certain things. We're like, well, I don't know. Do I really believe that? Oh, I must really believe that. And we're shocked. And so it's, we have to be gentle with ourselves, especially if we're trying to change our reality and saying, okay, what can I do differently? And how can I shift this?
Being gentle with ourselves is really important. We tend to beat ourselves up, and that is actually the wrong vibration, isn't it? Yes.
It can be, but then that's a belief system too. And that can be about, loving yourself and being kind to yourself. And, it's all a learning experience. I know people who are doing the law of attraction on all sorts of levels. I've manifested amazing things and sometimes very small things. Some people have great successes. Other people, they're still trying to, feel their way and take their steps. But it's all a learning process. And I've had clients who were very wealthy or successful or whatever. It's still they're trying to refine exactly what it is they need and what they want. And so we're all playing that game, we're all engaged in that process. And so I like to experience to say, okay, let's see what happens next. It's an adventure. I wonder how things are going to play out here. And when I do that, it becomes sort of a joyful adventure rather than feeling like it's a job or something I gotta be stressed out or really, work hard at. That's why I created my game, because I realized several years back or 5 years back when I created Attracted is that I was getting stressed out about the law of attraction. I was trying to get it right, and I was trying to do this and do that. And I saw a little kid playing, and I thought, man, I wish I could be like that kid, having as much fun with my spiritual practices as that kid. And I was like, oh, what if I made the law of attraction a game? And that kind of revolutionized the way, I basically live my life, is just engaging as a game that you're playing and relaxing with it and learning. And sometimes we'll learn great things about ourselves, and sometimes we'll say, "Ooh, I didn't realize about myself. What do I want to experience?" So it's a game. It's a fun game.
You're going to teach a course on the law of attraction, how to master the law of attraction. And it's based off your game, but the game is interesting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've taught metaphysical classes for many years. So in the upcoming class, I might touch upon Attracted a little bit, but the principles are always the same. So the idea with Attracted is that you come to the game and you say, okay, it might be yourself, or when I coach other people with it, or a group of people. Let's assume it's a group of people. So each person first fills out their goal statement. This is like the Attracted pad, where you write out your goal statement. You say, I'm now financially independent and free. I feel blah, 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 blah. And you write it out. And everybody sets a goal. And then what happens is that we have a game board, which I think you can see behind me, the game board. And you have a little game token, and you're sort of rolling dice. And every time you land on a position, you pick an Attracted card. And so the idea is, and then you do the card, with your goal statement in mind. And then what happens is that every time you do it, it expands your awareness and accelerates the law of attraction towards what you're manifesting. So really, really simple. And then what we do in a group is people help each other. Oftentimes when you're doing the law of attraction, it's more of a solitarian process. You're alone, in front of your candles, or doing your affirmations, or doing your meditations or something, and, sending out energy. But in Attracted, we play it together, although you can play it solo. And so it's set up to set a very clear goal, and then to energize that goal, and then sort of send something out, and then see what comes back in. So my experience in playing the game is that usually within a day or two, people have some sort of response. I've had people who've gotten checks, or people have had healings, but I think one time I had somebody who was like focusing on health, and then they just joined a gym. It was like something they felt okay, and they found like the perfect gym. And it was like, and then months later, they're like, yeah, that's what I needed exactly for that moment. So it's fascinating too, when you play the game, is that whatever your goal is, whatever it sets, they usually pick a card that's exactly related to it. Like I had somebody playing the other day, and it was, the word limitless was important to them, and the limitless card came up. Sometimes people are doing health, and then the health card comes up, because we have a health and a prosperity and different cards and different things that come up. And they're just, again, reflecting back what's in their consciousness.
Again, it begins with the goal, with the intention.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we energize that?
I mean, there's different ways to energize a goal. So, for example, sometimes people repeat it on a daily basis. Sometimes when people play the game, they write out their goal, and I might say 3 times a day, just look at the goal. Just look at the goal. Other people might close their eyes, and for 5 minutes, visualizing it, manifesting, and how would they feel if they had it. That's another way. Another technique is you write it out. You write it out 10 times. Now you could type it out, or you can write it out in longhand or cursive, what have you, and you write it out. And in that process, what will happen is, if you say, like, I'll give you an example, like, I'm financially independent and free. So your mind goes, no, you're not. And so then you write out that thought form, and then again, I'm financially independent and free. And then another thought comes up, you're crazy. So then you kind of flush out all the resistances, and then you can either clear those negative thought forms or then transform them. Like if you say, it's crazy, you could say, it's perfectly logical. I can be financially independent and free. I've experienced it, so I know from my own experience, because I actually did the affirmation years ago. The way is now open for me to be financially independent and free. So I was walking around going, the way is now open for me to be financially independent and free. I get them repeating this and repeating. I had no idea how I was going to do it. And then about $140,000 came to me. And I was like, oh, I guess the way was open for me. But I had no way of knowing it. My mind was sort of like, I don't know. But over time, as I've been doing that affirmation, probably for several months, it had gotten strong. I wrote it on a little business card. And I wrote it out, stuck it in my wallet, and I was like, oh, the way is now financially open for me to be financially. And I just kept on repeating it and repeating it. So that's another way. There's many different ways you can work with it. Some people do like a ritual. Some people, treasure maps is another way. That was something I taught years and years ago, where you set a goal and then you kind of do a collage. You might write your affirmation out, I'm not financially independent and free. And then, a picture of a car, like money, or, and then you kind of hang it in your house. That's like an old, I think they call it a vision board now. They changed, what they call it. But I went to a class on it, and then I did it. And this is like, oh gosh, over 20 years ago. I did all these ones for different areas of my life, prosperity, relationship. And then I had like a small apartment. So I plastered it on the walls, and then I was sitting there, and sure enough, everything manifested, everything sort of showed up. And I was like, oh, I never really did it again after that, but it showed me how powerful that was. So it really depends on you being creative with yourself. Some people are artistic and like to do a collage. Other people are more mental. They'll say, well, other people do like a mind treatment. You sort of close your eyes and you might say, I'm one with the divine, and, some sort of flowery kind of thing. And then God is blessing me now financially. That's like we sort of like use a biblical kind of thing, like Joseph Murphy did with his material. So mind treatment, science of mind would do that. Whatever you find usually will click for you is the best method, because I've done all of them. And so certain things I feel like vibrate more easily from my personality than other people.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. It's as if the affirmations that we're using, that you put on the notes and you keep repeating it, it's interesting how the mind will come back in and say, you're crazy. Who are you to think that? So it really is as if those affirmations are rooting out what's in the subconscious, in those belief systems. So we can see how holding that affirmation will help us become stronger at it. And it's interesting that it does go back to the belief systems. So it helps us introspect it a little deeper, doesn't it? If we say something that we really want, but then we listen to our psyche and it's like, no, how is that even real? So the affirmation, energizing the goal, actually helps us feel. So now let's go into the feeling of it, because that feeling is really key as well. The feeling.
Yeah, somebody comes up to me and says, I'm poor. I'll say, why are you poor? They'll say, I don't have any money. So I say, reverse it. And they'll say, I don't have any money because I believe I'm poor. I'm lonely because I don't have a relationship. I don't have a relationship because I believe I'm lonely. So this is a trick in learning about belief systems, is to just really say, listen to people's stories. We all have a story. I had a client the other day. What were they talking about? It was about a relationship issue. And they're saying, well, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. And I just kept on pushing them, saying, really, what's going on here? And they simply said, I feel vulnerable. If I'm in a relationship, I feel vulnerable. I said, well, could you be in a relationship and feel all is well and feel centered? I'm like, oh, I could do that. But they were so stuck on the story of, I'm too nervous. I can't, do this, I do that. And so those emotions or tip-offs are telling you things. So you can always trace it back from your emotion. If somebody says, I'm financially independent and free, I feel secure, but you really notice that they're not. Like when I play the game, so what I do with the people is we're playing, attract it. And we're saying, okay, goal statement. So if they're saying their goal statement, but and their feeling doesn't feel true, I'll say, do you really feel that? And I'll kind of like say, you want to change it? Are you ready for that? But by the end of the game, usually, because we've gone several times, it's usually become a good impression on their consciousness. And then you can say, oh, it's in their mind. It's, it's taken root. But sometimes we have the emotions that are the counter of it, which are there. And we have to be honest with what we feel. We can't always pave over them. We have to say, okay, I want this. I'm not sure I can have it. Okay, let me see if I can simply adjust and shift and shift and shift until one day say, okay, now I manifested this and now I feel this. So feeling really is the key with everything, because everything we create is because we want to feel something. And if we don't feel we can create it, it's because we feel another feeling like resistance or fear or doubt. And that's the whole crux of the law of attraction, is just really being able to confront that and say, okay, how can I get around that? It's like a little bit like a gate, like, okay, I want to get over there, but I'm here. How do I get over there? It's the belief and the feeling. And if you can shift that in some way, even just a little bit, just move the goalpost a little bit, you're on your way. You're on your way. Because there are things that I thought I would never manifest. And then I did it. And I was like, oh, I guess I could do that. But my mind was like, oh, it's impossible. And I'm like, well, okay. But I still did it anyway. There's the famous story I might have mentioned. I know we talked the other time and you interviewed me, and I was talking about years ago, there was an article. So it was electronics. It was like a computer company. And these two men developed an electronic component that all the experts said was impossible. Be like if you said, if I said to you, flying cars are not possible, like teleporting or like levitating cars are not possible. And then like a week later, some guy invents it. And you're like, well, I guess there must have been some way to do it. So these guys developed a component, and all the other authorities were like, we don't know how they did it, but they did it. So sometimes I'm like, I don't know how I did this, but I did it. It's kind of a funny. So that's why you like have fun with it. If you take it too serious, you're like, I gotta do it. I must get there. Other times you're like, well, let me just kind of, play around and see what happens. I recall the story about an artist. It was a guy, he was fairly successful in some other business. And he's like, I want to be an artist. So he did something with like sheet metal, and he created these like sculptures or whatever. And he made a couple of pieces and they put it in a gallery. Anyway, they ended up selling for like $40,000 or $50,000. And like, he wasn't even trying. So because he just said, I'm making it up. I'll just go put it out. Whereas other people are like starving artists and they're, trying so hard, their belief systems. The other guy had no issue with it. He had no resistance. But if somebody's really trying to make a success, in a business or something, sometimes they get anxious and they have a belief that they're going to be stopped or it's not going to work, and then they block themselves. So
yeah, isn't that interesting that sometimes we can want things so bad or so much, we want it so much that we're actually creating that resistance and pushing it away. So this is why it's important to stay relaxed, as you've mentioned, and to actually release the need for the outcome, release the need for seeing the outcome of your goal, right? And this is what you mean by staying relaxed and treating it like a game.
yeah,
We treat it like a game, like it's just fun, then I don't want to say we don't care, because we do care, but there's something that there's a fine line between caring about something and wanting it too much.
yeah, it's kind of if you don't have enough excitement about getting that thing, you're probably not going to manifest it. But if you have too much, like, I need to have this, it must happen, that's also repellent. So I find that I kind of set a goal, I tune in and say, okay, what can I do from what's available? What makes sense? What am I guided to do? If I'm guided to do nothing, I don't do anything. If I'm guided to do something, I do something. And then I find that things show up in the oddest way. Sometimes I make a strong request and I let it go. Other times the universe says, okay, you really want this? Well, you got to change all these beliefs. So then I go through a process of really transformation. So that's like a quickening that happens, like a preparation. Other times the universe is like, we got this. Just, relax, don't worry. I've had times, sometimes when I wanted to manifest something and I feel, because I'm so empathic and psychic, I'll feel like a sense of sobriety, like something, a calm will come over me because my radar is going out into that future time. It's saying everything's a-okay. And then I come back and then I'm like, oh, okay, there's nothing to do. Other times I get signals like stop, slow down. I had some clients that they wanted to buy an office space. So we did these meditations. We do like a different process with people. I help them get clear about what they want. And then we magnetized it and everything. And they're like, yeah, this will be the ideal place. It'll be the ideal place. Well, what happened was at the last minute, the deal fell through for whatever reason. They didn't, they found another, person to rent the space. And, my client was a little bit, crestfallen. And I said, well, I believe what's yours is yours and what's yours isn't. What's yours is yours and what's not's not. So anyway, they ended up finding a much better property. It was a couple of weeks later and then like, oh, that was the right one. Sometimes it's happened in relationships. You're like, I want that person. I want that person. And then you're like, oh, I didn't get that person. But then somebody else shows up and they're like, this is the person that was right for me. This was, that happened. So even in spirituality, you're like, oh, I have to master this particular spiritual technique to get where I want to go. And then something else is presented to you and you're like, oh, I can just do this, So it's that kind of that fluidic, relaxed, playful thing. It's like if we were playing, throwing a ball around. I used to throw when I was in Little League. My dad would go out in the yard and practice with me because I was a pitcher. No, I was actually the catcher. I was the catcher. So my dad would play the pitcher and I was, the catcher on the team. So he would practice and they'd say, okay, now you caught the ball, son. Now, do this, whatever. And after a while, we were just throwing it back and forth and it was fun and it was easy. So in terms of relaxing, sometimes we're afraid like we're not going to get what we want. So we tense up. And I would just say, relax and trust. Trust is the basis of all relaxation. It's not always easy to trust, but it's just, I always hear myself saying, I wonder what's going to happen now. I have something to go later tonight and I'm in an unusual situation where I'm like, I don't know if I want to go or not. Like it's one of those situations that's unfolded recently. I'm like, I'll just go and see what happens. Don't make a big deal about it because the mind will create all sorts of stories.
See, that feels so good right there. To just say yes. And there's movies out there like just say yes, just say yes and go for it. And to relax and trust. That really is getting out of our own way, isn't it? Because the mind gets in the way. So when we say get out of your own way, if you have your goal and your dream, get out of your own way and just relax with it and trust that the universe is working in your favor.
Yeah, I had a meditation recently about 2 weeks ago. And anyway, I was working with a master of love. This was on another dimensional plane because, I travel around quite a bit. So I was in this other dimension. This other being is like a master of love. And he says, all right, showed his heart energy. And it was like, just infinite love. And I'm like, I ain't there. And he goes, well, let's try. So like he sort of blended with me and I felt like my heart open. And I felt like just an infinite supply of pure love. And just let all the listeners just think about that for a second. Just imagine you were immersed like in a waterfall of just infinite pure love. Didn't matter who you were, what you looked like, what you did, successes, failures, God, goddess, spirit, the universe, whatever. I just felt that love. And in our human relationships, we seek to love and be loved. Some of us are very loving, some of us aren't. Sometimes we get our needs met, sometimes we don't. But whatever this thing was, it just loved me. I just felt that energy, and it was profound. It was profound. And so I feel like if I were to frame this in some way, like God or spirit or goddess, whatever you want to call the higher power, it's like a parent. And then we're like the children. We're like, hey, I want this, I want that. And it's like, I love you. Go and, do your thing. Like you're loved and supported. Sometimes we want things that aren't good for us. And then the higher power says, all right, if you want to go for that, I gave you the creative power, you're going to learn from that. So part of this too is the rightness about things is learning to want things that are good for us, that are loving to us. And, with relationships, we want companionship, but we really want love. And you can experience that infinite love right here and right now without anybody. If you want abundance because you think it's going to give you freedom, you can be free right now. If people are dealing with health issues and they feel, I don't feel so good. If I only my body was this way or my body was that way, you can still create well-being within yourself. You could be gentle with yourself, and all the people who are spiritual seekers, because although it may seem that attracted is just, for money or something like that, actually you can set goals for enlightenment. Whatever people equate with enlightenment is, what they're seeking, they can be it now. They can be present now. They can be expanded now. They don't have to wait until they go on Mount Sinai or sit under the Bodhi tree, and one day something magical happens. They say, hey, now I'm enlightened. Let me put my card out there. They can have that happiness right now, or that liberation, I guess is what I would say. So feeling and trust, but it's all there for us. It's almost like we're living in blinders a lot of the time. And it's like, I only can see what's in front of me. I can only get this and all that. When actually there are no blinders. It really is so infinite. And so it's a little like going to a supermarket. Anybody goes out here to a decent supermarket and goes for salad dressing, they'll see 50 types of salad dressing. That's a lot of things to choose from. Sometimes that can be overwhelming. But if you go to a smaller store, they have like 3, and you're like, okay, that simplifies it. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to pick this one. I think we actually have the opposite problem. It's not that we can't trust or we can't have certain things. So many things are possible. Sometimes that thought form becomes overwhelming.
Limitless possibilities. How good can it get? So you're going to be teaching a class, and it is how to master the law of attraction. And this is based on all of your work. Tell us about this and who it's for and how it's going to benefit people.
So again, we all have our strategies with how we manifest things. Different people. I've studied different systems where people do rituals or incantations or yoga. There's all sorts of different ways to I got so many stories about how people have manifested things. Some are quite funny. What we're going to do in the 2-hour workshop is, number one, how to set the goals and the intentions. Sometimes people think they know what they want. They say, I know what I want. This, that, and the other thing. And usually the first step in Attracted is we all get in a circle and I say, okay, write down your goal and your feeling. And then I help them tweak it. I have to say, is that what you really want? Can you give them more specific? And we narrow it down until they get to a point and they say, that's it. That's exactly what I wanted. That thought form. And if I had that, that's exactly what I wanted. So again, it's like a little bit like going to a supermarket and saying, well, I want food. Well, there's lots of food. I want this kind of food. And then you get more specific until you say, I want eggs and cheese and blah, blah, blah. So you get more specific. So the first thing in that workshop is really we'll work with the thought form that those people want to manifest, and how to kind of, do that in an easy way where it's fun, where it's not like, I got to struggle. It's like, well, what would be fun? That sort of thing. Then we'll go into tools to quickly shift beliefs and emotions. So kind of what we talked about here, some of the techniques of shifting your beliefs, because once you have the intention, what do you believe about it? Do you think you can have it? What's all the energy around that? What's all the, what do you really think about that? So, sometimes we also deal with sticky emotions. I've had people where they would cry at the game. And I'd say, well, what's going on there? So we have a clearing card so people can process their emotions a little bit, because sometimes they've denied themselves something. So understanding about the emotions, about what you're really feeling, what you really want. If you feel blocked, I've had people say, well, I want this, but I just feel like it's just not for me. And then I'll go into that. What's that story? Why do you believe that? And they'll say, well, this happened when I was younger, or this happened last week, or this happened in another lifetime, or I'm looking at the media and I want abundance, but I see all these people who don't have it and I feel guilty. I was one time playing Attracted with a guy, and I said, his goal was, be successful. And he goes, well, I wouldn't want that. And I go, why? He goes, well, it might make the other people in my family feel bad about themselves. So, I mean, maybe it was like a loving thing, but it didn't make sense to me. But I said, well, maybe you could still be loving to them and be successful. You don't, you're not harming them. They can create what they want. So understanding all about the beliefs and how those work. Sometimes in metaphysical circles, a lot of people will try to push away the beliefs and their feelings. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to look at that. I don't want, but yet that's where the juice is. That's where you really find the truth of really what's going on with you. If you're just repeating an affirmation all day long, I have money, I have money, but you don't believe it, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be static. So you have to really get into, what am I feeling? What do I want? What are my real beliefs? And really, sometimes confront yourselves. Confront yourself. I've had times where I'm like, I thought I believed one thing and it was something else. And then I would like wake up in the middle of the night and say, oh, this is really what's going on. This is why I'm acting like this. So this is self-transformation. This is really getting to know yourself. It's not just, putting in your order and having something come back. It's like really saying, who am I? What's in my consciousness? What am I creating? What do I want to change? How do I go about it? And so over the years, I've done this so many times with clients and classes and thousands of times with myself. I transformed so many areas of my life. I was ill at one point several years back and I healed myself. I learned psychosomatic methods, and that was a lot about my beliefs and my emotions, which I'd been resisting, at least in that section of my life. So yeah, it's pretty important stuff. Some systems are always saying, just feel good all the time. Nobody ever feels good all the time. And if you're trying to create something new, you have to say, why aren't I feeling good about this? Or what do I need to change? So that's part of the art of preparing yourself to receive what you truly want. It's even though you can play my game and people can get very, very quick results, other times you will go through a shift. Somebody says, I want to learn to love myself. Okay. Well, just walking around saying, I love myself now, I'm the greatest person in the world, probably isn't going to happen overnight. But over time, as they're kind to themselves and they do some affirmations, or maybe surround themselves with loving people and on, they go through steps and stages with it. They will one day, they find where it becomes like organic and natural. So some things you can change very quickly. I've had people who've changed things overnight or just shifted things or just got into a different direction. Other people where it was like very impressed upon their consciousness, like, really habituated to it. You created that. It's like a little bit like a ball, like there's balls of yarn sometimes, it's like a cat thing with a ball of yarn, or people like do this thing where they get the twine and they create those gigantic balls, like like Ripley's Believe It or Not or something, of a gigantic ball the size of a house or something. And so, so you think about it, you create this ball of energy, your consciousness, and then you're like, wait a minute, now I want to undo this. If I create this ball around not having money for my thought forms and emotions, now I have to unwind and untangle and untie and undo all that. And that's part of the preparation process. So sometimes if you're not manifesting what you want right away, it's not because you don't have the power to create it. It's because you're slowly undoing, reverse engineering, taking apart what you had created, that structure. You can also call it discreating. Some people use the word discreating. You have to dismantle the old, kind of like clearing a lot before you can build a home to create something new. And so you want to go with that preparation. You want to be gentle on yourself. You want to grow. You don't want to overdo it. Especially when we're tied to self-esteem or people feeling good about themselves. Well, if I have $1 million, I feel great about myself. And I'll say to them, well, how can you feel good about yourself right now? You seem to be a good person. Is there some other way? Did you get the money? Yeah, anybody who wins $1 million can feel good about themselves and feel like on top of the world. But how can you feel it now? How can you feel it now? That's part of the preparation. It's moment by moment. Also, I'm going to talk about in the workshop, managing the myths and truths of reality creation. This is based on some articles I did many, many years ago, because I would see people have an idea. I'll give you one example. If I learn the perfect law of attraction technique, I will become a demigod. I will become all powerful and I'll never, not have to work at something again. Well, not true. I mean, yes, you can learn to control your thoughts and create what you want, but it's all very dynamic. It's a play with the universe. Sometimes you think, well, I want to win the lottery. It's like, I want to win the lottery. I want to win. I'm going to do it. I'm going to lock it in my mind. And then money comes another way and you're like, oh, I didn't win the lottery, but I came this way. So we don't necessarily want to control everything in the universe. We just want to control our focus. So one of the myths is that if you find just that one technique and that perfect thing, and you'll never have to do anything again. You'll never have to grow. You never have to do anything. Just like pushing a button. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. And then people get frustrated. People get frustrated with themselves. So looking at those myths, because you can have a great technique, but then we have these other ideas, these funny ideas about the law of attraction. Like another one is, if I feel fear or doubt, I just blew the whole thing. I was cooking this wonderful creation, and then for 5 minutes, I was like worried, and now it's all, I got to throw it all out. It's not going to work. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You can still actually feel anxious or worried or concerned or doubtful and still create something that you might not think is possible if you're acting a certain way and holding that focus. It's a little like somebody like stretching themselves physically, where they're like, I don't know if I can jump off that jumping board. I don't know if I can, do this physical feat. And their mind is like, I don't know if I can do it, but they simply go and they do it. And they're like, oh, I guess I could do it. My mind was saying I couldn't do it. I still did it. So the myths and truths of reality creation. And then finally, having fun. I can't emphasize it enough, is that our society gets so serious. There's so many people who are like, well, I have to be a success, and I got to, pay the mortgage, and I have to, do this, and we have real concerns. But I would just invite anybody who listens to our conversation today, simply go to a playground and watch kids. Kid goes out there, he creates a whole world. He's in a sandbox, creates a whole universe, a whole city. He meets a kid, you say, all right, you two kids, you play together. And the kid doesn't even know the other kid. And all of a sudden, they become spacemen, and then they're having a whole journey around the universe, and they have a great time for 30 minutes because nobody told them that they weren't spacemen. So, if you just watch kids, that spirit is something that can kind of get lost in spirituality in general, where people are like, well, I'm very holy. I've got to put on my robe, and I've got to do my prayers, and humanity is counting on me. I have to save humanity today. And I'm like, well, you can do that, but maybe make them chuckle too, and just relax. There's other people who are helping humanity along. It's not all on your back. So sometimes people have messiah complexes where they take themselves very seriously. And so I say, hey, just lighten up. Osho, a very famous teacher I'm not a scholar of him, but Osho would just have all these crazy phrases about things. And he would just do the most eccentric things. And he was like a really enlightened, like eccentric and, also controversial. He tells a story. I got to tell the story, but guy comes to him and says, I want to kill myself. I cannot go on. I cannot go on. So Osho goes, all right, you've come here, you made the journey. I'm going to help you. He calls several of his followers. He says, this man wants to kill himself. Let's help him. Let's take him down to the bridge and throw him off the bridge. So they grab the guy, they start dragging him. He goes, no, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. He goes, okay, I guess you're cured then. Thank you. So, he had a crazy way of, but you see, the man didn't want to die. He just wanted peace. And when Osho challenged him, he realized he didn't want to die. And so when we're creating these things, we're like, really why people get so serious is because they're afraid they're not going to be able to create it. Because I've experienced that. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And then, then I found out that I could do it. And then later I'll be like, what was I making the whole fuss about? And so that's what I do with a lot of my clients. I'm talking to them, and we talk, and then they just calm down, and they see that it's important what they want to manifest. They will manifest it, but they can have fun with it. And that's, what would you do if you were all enlightened and had $1 million and had the perfect soulmate and perfect health and, everything you want? You probably would just try to have fun. I don't know what else you would do all day long. When I've created ideal situations in my life, I'm like, oh, okay, I have all these things. I just want to have fun now, so, relax.
In this now moment and be it and have fun and get creative with it. Yes.
Have a good time. Have a good time all the time. That's in the movie Spinal Tap, where they interview a guy and say, what's your philosophy of your life? Have a good time all the time. So have a good time all the time with the law of attraction.
Have a good time all the time. Beautiful. We are looking forward to this class. The details for it are here on this webpage, and it is transformation. I would like to share as well that, the affirmations, as we put them into practice, and watch the transformation, watch the subconscious belief systems come up, and the thoughts and emotions that created it. taking control of that, keeping our focus, controlling our focus is really important. Years ago, I I did something with money. I was like, I pay all my bills on time.
Mhm.
That was the affirmation I gave myself because at the time it was kind of depressing. I didn't pay all my bills on time. In fact, I was in a situation where I didn't want to even look at the bills,
Ah,
right? So you're like, ah, and so you let that credit card go, and then you get the credit card fees or things like that, and that's just a mess. So I shifted a lot of things just by saying, I pay all my bills on time.
oh,
And at first, my ego mind was like, how are you paying your bills on time? You do not pay your bills on time. Even
wow.
though that affirmation was not true, guess what? It made a transformation within me that
Ah,
I started paying my bills on time. And this is the responsibility of creating our reality. It's being responsible for what we do, what we say we're going to do. And it didn't take long, and all those bills were gone. All that debt is gone. You can expand it out into a bigger, I am totally debt free, right? And so these little steps along the way led to the bigger transformation.
yeah. Yeah, no, beautiful. And that's, sometimes when we're doing those small steps, we feel like, this isn't gonna, but I had something similar too, which I used to say, all my bills are paid in full at a time when I had debt. Actually, from when I had set up Attracted, because I invested a bunch of money into it and then, kept on investing. I said, okay, this is great, but, I have these debts. What am I going to do? And I say, all my bills are paid in full. And then I would visualize myself writing the check or actually going online and like putting in like how much you want to pay this month. I was like, and then saying paid in full, paid PIF, paid in full. And then one day I was like, and I was like, oh, I guess this did happen. But it was so subtle, if you let go of the time frequency. So little steps do make a huge difference. It's just little shifts. So people don't think, they think they need something dramatic, but little shift in consciousness has quite a bit of power. So that's beautiful what you share.
Slowly unraveling that big yarn, that ball of yarn, into
Yeah.
create what we've created from unconscious thoughts and emotions.
Mm,
So beautiful. Egan, this is a wonderful course for people to
mm,
really go deep into, and we're excited for it. We're going to have fun with it.
of course.
And let's hear some stories that come out of it, of the transformation that people make.
There will be
As we,
stories.
yeah, it always works, always. Okay. So as we say goodbye, I want to give you a moment to share any final thoughts or messages for folks.
Yeah. I've been studying the law of attraction for over 30 years. I've had all sorts of adventures and experiences. I would just say if you're in a place right now where you feel a little stuck or you're not sure, I'm here to tell you one way or the other, you really can, pull through. For other people who are like, they feel good about where they're at and they just are trying to refine things, the more advanced level is when you be able to create enough things, but getting it where it just feels satisfying. So I work on that level with people too, where they feel they can feel like exactly, where they want to go. And it feels just right. And I do this one-on-one in my coaching and my classes, and I'm always available to work with people. I've had some lovely people who've heard me on this broadcast who contacted me, and we go deep. We go deep and get to the root of it. I had to do it for myself, so it's pretty easy for me to do it with other people now. And it's exciting to know that anything really is possible. That's what gets me going every day.
And so have fun with it as we create.
Hmm.
Have fun, be specific, create, but be sure to let it go and watch the universe give it back to us.
Yes.
And do you want to add anything about receiving? Is that an important element in this process? Receiving.
Um, yeah. Part of what I worked on myself was just allow myself to receive more love, more light, more freedom, more abundance, more transformation. Um, Everything we do with the beliefs is about, and shifting our feelings is about opening up to receiving. But that is another set of beliefs about receiving. Some people feel like they shouldn't have this, or they don't deserve it, or they have to do certain things. I would just say, be open to receive all the blessings that the universe has for you. If you open up to that, you will be filled and you will receive those things. But receiving, you can put out a lot of energy to get something, but if you're not willing to receive it, or you create resistance, you know, it won't quite get to you in the way that you would like you to. But you can also, again, change those beliefs and open up and receive all the good that the universe has for you. That's my hope for everybody.
Yes, mine as well. Thank you. Egan Sanders, thank you so much for this introduction course. And we're excited for the actual course. And we invite all of those watching and listening to join us in this experience and to be excited about it and to play with it. Thank you.
Thank you.